There is so much of our science, of all of our science that we do that involves imagery. Very rarely do you find a scientific paper that doesn't have a picture in it, a figure of some sort. But there's this wonderful aesthetic that goes with some of these pictures that are just beautiful to look at. And so I had this thought, what if we took a huge array of the science that goes on here at the museum, take images, real images used in real science, and put them up on the wall. Some of them will be obvious, like an insect head. Some of them will not be obvious and will look very abstract. And yet each of them hopefully will draw in the visitor in a very aesthetic way, and it will stimulate curiosity. Oh, look at that, that's really cool. There's a great deal of very good, very hardcore, cutting-edge science that goes on at this museum that the average visitor doesn't know about. We have a microscopy and imaging facility, and it has a lot of the state-of-the-art equipment.
This is the Hitachi S4700. It's a scanning electron microscope. It is used for high-resolution imaging. There's a door that swings open, and we can insert the sample on the end of this rod into the chamber.
One of the most recent pieces of equipment that was purchased is a CT scanner. This is computed tomography.
What it does is it takes thousands of x-rays that we ask it to take, and then we send those x-rays to a 3D reconstruction program which can turn it into what we know as CAT scans.
The next step would be to grow out the skulls in 3 dimensions. And it's interesting, this is the first real attempt to do this with these kind of lizards, to look at the distribution of these armor bones.
What we've done in one case, for example, one of our curators in anthropology had a knife that was stuck in a sheath, and they couldn't get the knife out of the sheath, and he wanted to see if there was any writing on the blade. With computed tomography, they were able to get a 3-dimensional density image map of the entire object, strip away in the computer the sheath, and you can see the writing on the blade of the knife in great detail. This is the only exhibit that I know of that has gone up in this museum that cuts across every single scientific department. Some of the material that people will see hasn't even been put out in scientific publications yet. It's really that fresh.
If there's a blizzard on or the conditions are bad, then it is as miserable as it can be on the planet.
Unconquered in 1910, the South Pole provided 2 men a chance to make history. England's Robert Scott set off to reach the pole with scientific discovery core to his mission.
He was serious about wanting science done on his expedition and having it recognized for that.
But Norway's Roald Amundsen quickly turned scientific expedition into a race to the end of the Earth. Fame was on the line.
He had to write the books, he had to make the lectures, and he had to be first. When they went south in their ships, that was it. They were out of sight, out of mind, out of contact until they came home again, if they came home.
In the end, only 1 team returned.
As soon as news came back, it was like a bombshell.
Discover the story behind the race to the end of the Earth at the American Museum of Natural History.
Let's go into one of the collection rooms in ichthyology. So this is one of many rooms that we have like this, like full of jars of dead fish. And we have over 2 million dead fish specimens here. And there are about 27,000 species of fish on the planet. And what we have here is we're trying to represent each of those species. Now, one of the great insights of Darwin, of course, was that not every individual is the same. You know, species vary, populations vary. So what we try to do with these collections, for each species that we're representing, we're kind of like putting an envelope around them. So we have males and females, we have juveniles. We try and get populations or samples of populations from throughout the range of each species. So we kind of really encapsulate that variation that makes the species what it is. As you start getting into the evolution of fishes, you find a trend, and you find a trend towards this kind of suction feeding anatomy, which is really pretty cool. you have the mouth jaws. So these are your jaws. Here's the lower jaw and the upper jaw. And you can see they have teeth all over them. Now this fish, with it closes its mouth, it has all of its gill apparatus in here, which you can see. It can drop this down, create a negative pressure, suddenly open its mouth, the water comes streaming in, bringing in prey with it. So bits of prey are going to go in there. These coelacanths are thought to be one of the lineages that gave rise to the tetrapod, so that's the four-limbed animal. This should just be a simple fin, which at the end you can see there is a fin. But that fin is born on this big fleshy appendage here. So I'm actually shaking hands with it. This is the equivalent of my arm. One of the things that we're doing here very actively is going through these collections, making new collections and discovering new species. And in ichthyology, that's actually quite easy to do because there's so much we don't know about the fishes out there on the planet.
The American Museum of Natural History is making its dinosaur collection mobile with a brand new iPhone app. Click through hundreds of stunning images and discover fun facts and stories about the museum's popular dinosaur fossils. Dig up the dinosaur app for free on iTunes.
Well, I'm an assistant professor at Oregon State University, and so I'm teaching undergraduate classes. I'm teaching mammalogy, and I'm teaching management and conservation of mammals. I've really enjoyed teaching. It's been a chance to think broadly and synthesize some of this information, and I must say I spend a lot of time talking to my students about some of my experiences doing research. I'm just trying to balance time in the field, time at my desk, time with my family. As my daughter gets older, I'm really looking forward to bringing her out here. In fact, we already have. I had her out here at 4 months out in the Mojave with me. So we camped out not far from here and hiked all over the place. So I'm really looking forward actually to involving my family in the rest of my research. Typically try to glass the animals up in the high country, hike up to the general area where they are, look for fresh pellets. So we'll do that. At the Marble Mountains, we'll be able to look out into a whole bunch of country and talk about a bunch of other populations that are of interest. So there's the South Bristols to the west that were recolonized in the 1990s by sheep from the Marbles. So they crossed about 5 kilometers of desert flats, and they also crossed a 2-lane highway to do that, but it's a small road. Just to the north of the Marbles is Interstate 40. And just north of that are 2 mountain ranges, the Providence and the Granites, that have good populations of sheep. Should be well connected with the Marbles, but apparently aren't because of Interstate 40.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, you can feel the moisture coming out of these because they're cool to the touch. So it's sort of a hay scent. It's got a little bit of that sheep or goat musk to it. Not a bad smell at all, actually. So we're just, you'll pick up and it's got a particular little sharp edge to it if it's really still got any moisture in the pellet, as these do. So it's just a convenient way to quickly assess how old the pellets are. For the genetic work I did, I tried to get the freshest pellets I could because it seemed that there was then less risk of the DNA degrading, although I often would use pellets that were even weeks old with fair success. I have to be able to see a landscape to visualize the important questions. I have to experience a landscape to really be able to think well about what I want to study, how I want to study it. I can't do that sitting at a desk. Even though at the desk is maybe where you're doing the bulk of your writing, your analysis and all that, I think it's really important if you're working in these systems to be in touch with the systems, even if it's a short trip, just to get out there, really understand how it is to work on the landscape, I'd say it's critical. I always tried to pack my pack with enough food and water to last at least 24 hours in case something happened out there. So I certainly have regular food for lunch, and then granola bars and emergency rations for if I had to spend the night, etc. So getting the water calculation right is important in the summer in particular, because water adds so much weight to your pack. But having overheated out there a few times and run out of water a few times, I can tell you, you don't want to do that either. First time I came out to the desert was actually right about to this location, Old Dad Mountain, and it would have been the summer of 1999. So those first couple years I was taking classes and learning and coming up with ideas for this project, but I would come out and do a few trips in the summer to try to get my feet on the ground. I really started working out here seriously in 2000, so it's been about 9 years, I guess, that I've been kind of a regular out here. But we need fine-scale movement on these guys.
Clint is a very special person, sort of the ideal person you could ever ask to work with. First of all, I brought him out into this desert in the heat of the summer. Took him on a short trip to sort of show him how you deal with this hot desert in the summer. And that's all I had to do. He's such a good field biologist that he picked it up immediately, and he was on his own working, and was willing to work alone even, and few people would do that. But that's what it would take to make this project happen that he did.
Yeah. I've seen some more infrastructure. I've seen cell phone towers go up in places. I've seen traffic volumes get heavier on some of these roads. But then I've also seen some exciting changes. I've seen some populations of sheep that were just the barest beginnings of a colonization take off. We've seen some populations do very well out here. Documented one extinction, but it was right at the start of when I was working, and it was, who knows how, it might have been years that those sheep were gone. We've seen a lot of sheep populations doing well. There's been a lot of interest in even possibly mitigating existing barriers, so finding ways to get animals over or under some of these big interstates. It's really life-changing to be able to come out here and spend this kind of time exploring and thinking and working, and I've had wonderful people to work with out here. People I consider colleagues from all sorts of backgrounds who have an interest in biology, conservation, wildlife, any of those things. So hearing their stories and getting their input has been also really exciting. So I just feel lucky to be working out here.